There is a creature in the deep ocean so powerful that even orcas, the undisputed wolves of the sea, will turn and flee the moment they detect its presence. A creature capable of diving to depths where sunlight has never existed, wrestling monsters the size of school buses in total darkness, and generating a burst of sound so intense it could theoretically vaporize a human eardrum from a mile away. And yet, this titan is not a shark. It is not a predator forged from teeth and speed. It is something far stranger, far more intelligent, and far more terrifying. The truth behind why orcas, the ocean's most feared killers, refuse to engage this animal will completely rewire the way you think about the food chain beneath the waves. For thousands of years, sailors returned from voyages with impossible stories. They spoke of demons that shattered longboats with a single tail slap, of squid arms as thick as tree trunks washing onto beaches with saucer-sized suction scars, of oceans that suddenly boiled with foam and blood before falling eerily silent. Ancient mariners in the Azores whispered of a leviathan that could think, remember, and hold grudges. Melville later gave this legend a name that echoed through literature, but long before Moby Dick, the whalers of Nantucket had already coined a more clinical description. They called it the sperm whale, a name born entirely from a misunderstanding. When early hunters cracked open the enormous forehead of the animal, they discovered a milky, waxy fluid and, in a moment of grotesque ignorance, assumed it was reproductive material. In reality, that mysterious substance is one of the most sophisticated pieces of biological engineering ever produced by evolution, and it is precisely the reason no orca in its right mind will pick a fight with this creature. Taxonomically, the sperm whale belongs to the family Physeteridae, the sole surviving giant of a lineage that once dominated the Miocene seas. Its scientific name, Physeter macrocephalus, literally translates to blower with a giant head. And what a head it is. Nearly a third of the animal's entire body length is skull and forehead alone. A mature bull can stretch over 20 meters, 65 feet, from snout to fluke, and weigh in at a staggering 57 metric tons, more than 125,000 pounds. To put that into perspective, a fully grown male sperm whale outweighs the largest recorded orca by a factor of nearly 6. But raw mass is only the beginning of what makes this animal so unnervingly dangerous. Inside that colossal forehead sits an organ found in no other creature on Earth. The spermaceti organ, along with a lower cavity called the junk, functions as a biological sonar cannon. When a sperm whale needs to hunt or communicate, it forces air through a specialized structure known as the monkey lips and generates a click. But this is no ordinary click. These pulses have been measured at 236 decibels underwater, making the sperm whale the loudest animal on the entire planet. For context, a jet engine at close range peaks around 150 decibels. The sperm whale's click carries enough acoustic energy to stun fish, disorient prey, and, according to some biologists, potentially incapacitate smaller marine mammals through sheer sound pressure alone. When a pod of orcas swims into range of this sonic weaponry, they are not confronting a docile giant. They are staring down a living artillery unit. The sperm whale's body is built for one thing above all else: the abyss. While orcas rule the sunlit surface waters, sperm whales descend into a realm that most creatures on Earth will never experience. Routine dives reach depths of 1,000 meters, 3,280 feet, but confirmed records show individuals plunging past 2,250 meters, more than 7,000 feet below the surface. At those depths, the water pressure exceeds 220 atmospheres, enough force to crush a submarine hull. Yet the sperm whale glides through it as casually as a bird crossing a meadow. Its ribcage is designed to collapse. Its lungs deflate entirely. Its blood, saturated with myoglobin, carries oxygen reserves 10 times denser than what circulates through a human bloodstream, and it can hold its breath, actively hunting the whole time, for over 90 minutes before returning to the surface. This is a world orcas cannot enter, and that inability is the first cornerstone of the strange truce that governs the open ocean. Down in that inky darkness lives the sperm whale's preferred prey, and it is arguably the only creature in the ocean that gives the whale itself a fight. The giant squid, and its even larger cousin the colossal squid, are not the passive calamari of horror films. A mature colossal squid can weigh over 500 kilograms, 1,100 pounds, and possesses eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest in the animal kingdom. Its tentacles are lined not just with suction cups, but with rotating, razor-edged hooks that latch into flesh and tear as the squid pulls back. Nearly every adult sperm whale that has ever been examined bears the circular scars of these battles across its head and flanks. Some of those scars measure over 10 centimeters, 4 inches, in diameter, evidence of squid far larger than any specimen ever recovered whole. The sperm whale hunts these creatures in total blackness, using its clicks to build a three-dimensional acoustic map of a world no light has ever touched. Then it closes in and fights, jaw against tentacle, in silent, invisible warfare a mile below the waves. An orca, for all its brilliance, cannot follow. It cannot dive that deep. It cannot see with sound the way a sperm whale can. And it certainly cannot survive a direct blow from a fluke the size of a garage door. But the sperm whale's true genius is not solitary. It is collective. And this is where the orca's fear becomes almost mathematical. When a pod of orcas approaches a group of sperm whales, something remarkable unfolds. The sperm whales do not scatter, and they do not flee upward toward the surface where orcas are strongest. Instead, they perform a maneuver marine biologists have named the Marguerite Formation. The adult females and juveniles arrange themselves in a tight circle, heads pointed inward toward the calves, tails facing out like the petals of a flower. Every one of those tails is a 5-ton bludgeon, capable of delivering a strike with enough force to shatter bone. Any orca that attempts to breach the formation gets slammed with a wall of coordinated muscle. Sometimes the arrangement flips into what researchers call the heads-out formation, where the whales face outward and use their massive jaws as a defensive perimeter. Either way, the message is the same: come closer, and you die. Orcas have been observed circling these formations for hours, testing the edges, feinting attacks, waiting for a mistake. And in the overwhelming majority of documented encounters, the orcas eventually give up and swim away. Not because they lack courage, but because they possess exactly the kind of intelligence required to calculate that the meal is not worth the injury. A single fluke strike could end an orca's life, or, worse, break its jaw and doom it to slow starvation. Even the ocean's most efficient killer understands cost-benefit analysis. To coordinate this kind of tactical defense, sperm whales need something extraordinary between their ears, and evolution has delivered it in spectacular fashion. The sperm whale possesses the largest brain of any animal that has ever lived on this planet. Not the largest relative to body size, the largest, period. A mature sperm whale brain weighs approximately 8 kilograms, 17 pounds, more than 5 times the mass of a human brain. Its cerebral cortex is deeply folded, densely packed with neurons, and rich in the same spindle cells that grant humans the capacity for empathy, planning, and self-recognition. Some researchers believe sperm whales may process information in ways so alien to our own cognition that we may never fully understand them. They perceive the world primarily through sound. Their thoughts, whatever they are, may be composed of acoustic geometry rather than images or words. That acoustic intelligence has given rise to something no other marine species has been proven to possess at this level: a genuine culture organized around dialect. Sperm whales communicate using patterned sequences of clicks, called codas. These are not random noises. They function like acoustic fingerprints, and they vary from one population to the next. Researchers studying Caribbean sperm whales, particularly the long-running Dominica sperm whale project, have identified distinct vocal clans that share specific coda patterns. Whales from one clan will interact freely with others from the same clan, even across thousands of miles of open ocean. But when two clans meet in the same waters, they ignore each other entirely, as if speaking mutually unintelligible languages. Calves are not born knowing their clan's coda. They learn it. They are taught by their mothers, their aunts, and the elder females across the first years of their lives. This is not instinct. It is inherited tradition, transmitted through generations of ocean-going teachers. Their society, like the killer whales, is built on a matriarchal foundation. Female sperm whales and their young form stable family units that stay together for decades, sometimes for a lifetime. The oldest females serve as the memory of the group, guiding the pod to seasonal feeding grounds, remembering the coordinates of deep canyons where squid gather, and passing down survival strategies refined over the course of a century. Male sperm whales follow a different life path, leaving their natal group during adolescence, and eventually roaming the polar seas alone, or in loose bachelor bands. When a bull returns to warmer waters seeking to mate, he does so briefly and then vanishes again into the cold. The females and their offspring remain, generation after generation, in the same tight-knit society they have always known, and within that society lives a bond so profound that it has stunned even the most seasoned marine researchers. When a member of the pod is injured or sick, the others do not abandon it. They surround it. They lift it toward the surface so it can breathe. There are documented cases of sperm whale pods carrying dying members for days, refusing to leave their side, even as their own energy reserves collapsed. In one extraordinary observation, researchers watched a group of sperm whales adopt a deformed adult bottlenose dolphin that had been rejected by its own species. The whales allowed the dolphin to swim among their calves, rub against their bodies, and travel with them for weeks. This is not the behavior of a mindless beast. This is the behavior of a creature with an emotional interior life vast enough to include empathy for an outsider of an entirely different species. Now consider what all of this means when placed side by side with the orca. The orca is an apex predator with strategic intelligence, cultural inheritance, and family loyalty. But the sperm whale possesses those same qualities, scaled up to a body 6 times larger, wielding a natural weapon that operates on frequencies orcas cannot match, and defending its young with a formation that turns physics itself against any attacker. The reason orcas do not hunt adult sperm whales is not mystery, it is arithmetic. The reason they occasionally attempt to isolate calves and almost always fail is because the sperm whale pod treats every calf as the collective property of the entire family. To touch one is to fight all of them. And yet, this ancient balance between predator and titan was nearly destroyed, not by orcas, but by us. For nearly 2 centuries, humanity waged a systematic war against the sperm whale that dwarfed anything the natural world had ever inflicted upon them. The spermaceti oil in that massive forehead burned cleaner and brighter than any fuel of the age. It lubricated the machines of the Industrial Revolution. It lit the street lamps of Europe and America. Ambergris, a waxy secretion produced in the whale's intestines, became one of the most valuable substances on Earth, prized by perfumers for its ability to anchor scent. And so the ships came, first from Nantucket and New Bedford, then from every major maritime nation on the planet. In the 19th century alone, an estimated 236,000 sperm whales were killed. In the industrial 20th century, that number climbed to over 700,000. Populations that had thrived for millions of years were reduced by more than 70% in a matter of generations. But sperm whales did something extraordinary during that slaughter. They adapted. Researchers analyzing old whaling logbooks from the Pacific have discovered a chilling pattern. Within just a few years of intensive hunting in a given region, the strike rate of harpooners collapsed. The whales began evading vessels before harpoons were even thrown. They stopped surfacing in predictable formations. they started diving deeper and staying down longer. Information about the ships, their smell, their sound, their silhouettes, was being transmitted horizontally across the population, whale to whale, pod to pod, from one clan to another. In other words, the sperm whales were learning what humans were, and they were teaching each other how to survive us. This is one of the earliest and most convincing documented examples of cultural transmission of survival knowledge in any non-human species. There is a darker chapter still. In 1820, the Nantucket whale ship Essex was rammed and sunk in the middle of the Pacific by a massive bull sperm whale that observers described as behaving with unmistakable intention. The whale struck the ship twice, in coordinated fashion, and then vanished. The event was so unprecedented that it seeded the imagination of a young Herman Melville and eventually birthed the novel that gave sperm whales their mythic reputation. Marine biologists today debate whether such attacks represented conscious retaliation or defensive instinct, but they agree on one thing. Sperm whales are more than capable of understanding the source of their suffering, and when pushed to the edge, they can and will strike back. Today, industrial whaling has been almost entirely halted, but the sperm whale still lives in a world reshaped by human presence. The oceans have grown louder. Container ships and seismic surveys blast the water with low-frequency noise that penetrates deep into the abyss, jamming the acoustic environment sperm whales rely on for hunting and communication. In some regions, background noise has doubled or tripled over the past half-century. Imagine trying to hold a conversation, navigate and locate food inside a stadium during a rock concert that never ends. That is the daily reality for a sperm whale pod near a busy shipping lane. Chemical pollutants like PCBs, heavy metals, and microplastics also accumulate in their tissues over decades. A necropsy performed on a sperm whale washed ashore in Indonesia in 2018 revealed nearly 6 kilograms of plastic debris packed inside its stomach, including cups, bottles, bags, and flip-flops. It had starved to death slowly, unable to process food past the obstruction, its body loaded with fragments of a civilization it had never harmed. And still, despite all of it, the sperm whale remains. It continues to descend into the darkness and duel with monsters. It continues to teach its calves the codas of its ancestors. It continues to arrange itself in flower-shaped formations of tail and tooth when danger draws near. And it continues to hold the deep ocean in a way that no other creature, not even the orca, can challenge. The greatest revelation is not simply that sperm whales scare off killer whales. It is that the ocean's true hierarchy is not measured in speed or teeth. It is measured in memory, coordination, and depth of mind. The sperm whale is a philosopher forged into a leviathan, a thinker who happens to weigh 50 tons, an animal whose brain hums with acoustic thoughts we may never translate. Orcas understand this instinctively. They see the sperm whale, and they see something they respect, at a level that transcends predation. Perhaps that is the lesson buried inside every encounter between these two great intelligences of the sea. Power alone does not decide who rules the ocean. Wisdom does. Restraint does. The willingness to defend what matters most does. The next time you look at a photograph of the open water, remember that somewhere below, a family of sperm whales is diving into darkness together, singing to each other in a language older than any human word, teaching their children how to survive a world we made harder for them. And remember that even the fiercest killers in that water know when to bow, when to turn, and when to leave the giants of the deep alone.